Good. Well, thank you very much for that. We move on now to the financial report. Paul.
Thank you, Malcolm. The report in front of you sets out, as always, the latest financial performance data for the commissioning system, on this occasion up to the end of the third quarter, and indeed our forecast for the financial year, which ends in a slightly worrying 7 weeks' time. As we've reflected before, this is a year of considerable challenges for the NHS as a whole, with CCGs in particular facing an uphill struggle to make ends meet while creating the lion's share of the 800 million system reserve we needed to set aside at the beginning of the year to cover risks across the commissioning and provider sectors. Board members will of course recall that there was no separate funding for this in the spending review, so they've had to stretch their efficiency programmes to create the required headroom for that reserve. And in that context, I'm pleased to be able to report that the year-to-date position has improved to within 0.1% of budget overall, that the core forecast for the commissioning sector as a whole, before the positive impact of releasing the 800 million reserve, remains at an effective break-even, and that the risks to the delivery of that break-even position have reduced steadily from over £500 million at quarter one to nearly 300 million at the half-year point, and 148 million in the quarter three report you have in front of you. So we do still have a way to go if we're going to identify sufficient mitigations to be confident about meeting our objective, but we are heading in the right direction. Appendix 2 shows you some more detail on the broadly balanced core forecast position I've just indicated. Despite a 538 million increase in their delivery of efficiencies compared to last year, CCGs are showing year-to-date overspends averaging 0.8% and affecting 98 CCGs, a similar number to the report I gave you in month 7. Some of these organisations are still expected to recover their positions in the final months of the year as a result of the turnaround actions they've been taking with support from the local NHS England teams, but we do still anticipate that at least 70 CCGs, a third of the sector, will finish the year with overspends. You can see that specialised commissioning is expecting to balance its books by the end of the year, despite significant ongoing challenges, particularly in the South region. And I think we just need to acknowledge the significant turnaround that has taken place in the specialised commissioning control of the business and ensuring that they live within their means in an area which is characterised by growing demands and indeed volatility of demand. We've got high levels of confidence in that forecast, mainly because some of the cost risks that we anticipated in central specialised commissioning budgets are not yet materialising to the extent expected. There are small underspends, as you can see, in the other direct commissioning budgets, but the big action is in the central budgets, where we're continuing to seek reductions and savings as an offset to the challenges in the CCG sector. We've increased that by 80 million to a total of 363 million since we last met, and we're continuing to freeze underspends as they occur. The oddities of Treasury accounting are reflected in the adjustments towards the bottom of the table. These have improved slightly since month 7, as CCGs in particular have refined their estimates of provision movements, leaving us with a bottom line of a 5 million underspend, which you might like to know is equivalent roughly to 25 minutes of NHS expenditure, just to give you a sense of the relevance of a 5 million landing strip. I've set out at paragraphs 12 and 13 our risk assessment against that position, largely consisting of the CCG risks I outlined earlier, most of which I have to say seem likely to materialise. So our success in meeting our financial objectives for the year depends largely on our ability to find additional mitigations elsewhere. Either way, will deliver a substantial contribution to financial balance across the health sector when the 800 million risk reserve is brought into play. And in that context, I do have to say that, as I indicated in December, it does look very likely, if not certain, that the 800 million reserve regrettably will need to be released to Commissioners' bottom lines to secure overall financial balance, rather than being available for investment. I commend the report to the board, and as always look forward to your questions and suggestions.
Thank you, Paul. Colleagues, like to take up his offer.
It's just worth recording, Malcolm, that we in the commissioning committee went through these in great detail yesterday.
Indeed. Well, I think given that, not all the board are on the commissioning committee, but those who are on it had a very good presentation and very good discussion yesterday. So on that basis, Paul, I think we can excuse you from further service.
Thank you very much.
this morning.
I'll go off and have
I
lunch.
exercise.
Maybe Malcolm, just one thing we drew out at the commissioning committee, but given Paul wasn't there for that part of the conversation. So we're going to have, despite the 100 million plus risk that's still there, we think we're on track for a balanced budget with 800 million of managed underspend to provide cover for the trust position, as Paul said. But that 800 million is obviously dependent on CCGs not using any of their 1% or increasing their overspend in support of their local providers. To the extent they do that, then that's money that's coming off the 800 million, which is needed for the provider sector nationally. So it's not a sensible thing to do, given that we need that 800 million to help the trust position nationally. And I think that's just something that we need to make sure is understood right through the system.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you very much.